Multiple Man is not exactly a household name, though the character's been around since the mid-70s and briefly appeared in the 90s X-Men cartoon and X-Men The Last Stand. Jamie Madrox doesn't have the same brand recognition as, Wolverine or Deadpool. So what is it about this seemingly tertiary character that made him so provocative that there was a time where there was a Multiple Man movie starring James Franco planned? Well, on the surface, Multiple Man may seem like a generally goofy and comic character whose silly power involves making duplicates of himself. But Peter David's run on X Factor brought us something truly otherworldly. Not only was it an honest and compelling examination of the character that demonstrated rich character relationships, it's also perhaps, with no exaggeration, the single darkest moment in any comic book ever. Let's back up for a second though, because to understand what this moment is, we need to understand who Jamie Madrox is and how his power works. Technically a changeling instead of a mutant, Jamie Madrox is a guy who can transform kinetic energy into duplicates of himself. He's been doing this since day one, quite literally, when a doctor slapped a kinetic clone right out of his newborn ass. As a grown adult with control over these powers, he can also do this intentionally. Slamming his foot down on the ground can do the trick. He doesn't exactly have control over these multiples though, and by exactly I mean at all. Sure, they're still all technically him, but as he fragments, they exaggerate aspects of the original Jamie. When they play nice, it's the greatest thing in the world. He can send his duplicates off to learn martial arts, or get doctorates, or join government agencies, or just learn how to yo-yo really cool. When they come back, he absorbs them back into his body on contact, along with all of their knowledge, skills, and memories. He's the literal embodiment of wishing you could be in multiple places at once. The trouble comes when these multiples manifest with the darker sides of Jamie's. Sometimes they can be a little bit ruder, and other times, even criminally sociopathic. The first dupe we meet in David's 2000 run on X Factor is meant to talk down a depowered mutant from trying to kill himself. And instead of calming him, he just straight up pushes him off the building. Luckily, the mutant survives. Another dupe decides to foil a villain's scheme by strapping a bunch of explosives to himself and blowing up the top of a skyscraper. That's the trouble with free will. You never know where it'll take you, especially when you isn't really you. And if you think you know the dark path that this is going, let me tell you right away that you don't know the half of it. In the aftermath of M-Day, where Scarlet Witch depowered a vast majority of the world's mutants due to some, personal issues, Multiple Man is operating a detective agency in an area of New York that has been dubbed Mutant Town, along with fellow X Factor members Wolfsbane, Strong Guy, Monet, Siren, Richter, and a mysteriously seemingly omniscient girl named Layla Miller. The team stands up against the Superhuman Registration Act, and Madrox kicks Cyclops and the X-Men out of Mutant Town. Anytime someone puts Cyclops in his place is a reason for celebration, so the crew gets out, celebrates, gets wasted, and they all wake up with hangovers. Again, these aren't the X-Men, they're fuck-ups, but they've got heart where it counts, in the, heart area. But some big things happen during the celebration. Jamie and a dupe have blackout drunken sex with Siren and Monet. Jamie with Siren and the dupe with Monet, at least as far as he could gather from the evidence. And neither remember anything about the night the following morning, leaving Jamie in a very precarious situation given that these are effectively his co-workers. And then it gets even more complicated when it's revealed that Siren got pregnant that night. Things change for the team from there. Mutant Town gets destroyed, X Factor relocates to Detroit, Jamie gets blackmailed by a government agent, etc. Mostly pretty standard stuff, but all the while, Siren's pregnancy continues, it keeps on trucking, and she and Jamie grow closer and closer. And if you're thinking, come on, how long can this last? Pregnancies in comic books never stick. Well, you wouldn't be wrong. I mean, Sue Richards and Jessica Jones have successfully had kids, but they're the exception to the rule. Most comic book pregnancies end poorly. Look to Mary Jane Watson's pregnancy infamously ending in a stillbirth. Something usually goes wrong. And something goes very wrong here, and it all happens in issue 39. There's been a long-standing tension between Siren and Jamie, especially once he admitted that the drunken hookup with Siren also coincided with one of his dupes having sex with Monet at the exact same time. That's the kind of thing that tends to sour the romance a little bit, but at this point in the story, with them about to become parents, they figure, hey, what the hell, let's get hitched. It's sweet. They're both kind of messes, but they have undeniable chemistry and a kid on the way. And then the tension starts to build. There's something wrong with the baby and an emergency C-section is needed. This feels like it's gonna be the thing that goes wrong. But it's not. The C-section goes fine. But there's another problem. The baby's skin is a bit blue and it may be not getting enough oxygen. So they have to get him to the neonatal intensive care unit. This is where it all falls apart, right? Wrong, it's not. The real worry is that there's a government agent who has been blackmailing Jamie, Val Cooper, who may want to steal away the baby for her own nefarious purposes. This is the exact kind of devastating twist that comics like this are built on. Madrox confronts Val and finds his baby is doing just fine. He even gets a moment to truly revel in the idea that for once in his life, things just might turn out to be okay. They won't. The healthy, happy birth of his child functions as a completion and resolution of multiple arcs. Siren and Jamie's relationship finally being healed, Siren finally being able to accept her father's recent death, X-Factor's team finally feeling truly united, and Jamie finally finding a purpose in his life and for the very first time feeling like he's not a worthless screw-up. And then it happens. It's unbelievable, unexpected, ghastly, and shocking to the absolute core. As Jamie holds his child, he begins to absorb little Sean into his body as if he were nothing more than a dupe. Completely accidentally and with nothing that can be done to stop it. In a heartbeat before any of it even has time to feel real. Baby Sean is gone forever. It turns out Jamie had put the story together wrong. He had slept with Monet and his dupe had slept with Siren. Like actual father and son, the child is an ephemeral dupe, waiting to be reabsorbed upon contact with the original Jamie. The child doesn't even get to die, in the traditional sense at least. It simply vanishes into nothingness, as if it never existed to begin with. Siren, however, still extremely exists, and she is understandably emotionally annihilated by her newborn child being ripped into non-existence by her fiancé. She attacks Jamie ferociously, clawing at him as though trying to claw her very child out of his body. The impact of the attack creates a dupe, who helpfully skews toward Jamie's self-loathing aspects, telling him that this is all his fault, karma for his bad deeds. On one hand, this existential nightmare is completely flooring to the reader. Like Jamie, we're suckered into a false sense of security, having successfully put to bed every single fear that something would go wrong, until realizing the worst possible outcome, that Jamie himself is the problem, and that he's the only one to blame. On the other hand, X-Factor has never been about happy people, it's always been about broken people doing the best they can. How could it have ended any other way? Peter David did something dark here, but it's genuinely incredible, and it's bolstered by the fact that the stories that follow take this event deadly seriously. Depression nearly drives Jamie to suicide, Siren completely falls apart, and the team disintegrates, and Sean is never truly forgotten. There's something of a happy ending to all of this though, and it is truly the end. The comic is literally called The End of X-Factor. Layla Miller, after going through a whole bunch of age-related bullshit, and Jamie Madrox are living together on Jamie's old family farm when Layla discovers she's pregnant. This hits Jamie hard. He's never forgotten about Sean, and in this moment he breaks down and prays. A pretty big deal, as a demonic influence had literally begun to take over his mind at this point, by the way. And the person he prays to is his ex, who is now a mystical goddess called the Morrigan, as it tends to happen. She heals him of his demonic curse, and Jamie finally gets the ending he's always wanted. Well, in X-Factor at least. But long after this happy ending, the demise of Sean Madrox is nothing short of the most haunting event in all of comics. In a genre that generally deals in astronomical stakes and high melodrama, this story serves as a terrifyingly personal, small, and relatable reminder of how imperceptibly, impossibly fragile every moment of life is. Even when you're doing your best to do every single thing right, sometimes that's just not enough. Peter David himself suffered a stroke shortly before completing his final run on X-Factor, and was stuck resorting to GoFundMe and Patreon to help pay off his medical and tax debts. But his run on the series kicks an incredible amount of ass. If you're into screw-up, lovable characters, insane plot twists, and genuinely amazing storytelling, there's simply nothing better.